Hey everyone, we're still in Moose Pass. Not a surprise there. We're still waiting for parts. But on the upside, we've got a launch date. They've told us to show up on the 9th. They have our axles, and from there we'll be able to proceed wherever we want again. So, Moose Pass is, well, Alaska's on fire. I think there's something like 300 fires or something burning right now. And so I think it's 500 million acres have burned already just this year. So, it's a fire season, and they've been going through a drought. They've gone about 3 or 4 weeks now without rain, which is highly unusual. Not to mention the temperatures has been breaking records all over the state. Lots of 90-degree temperatures, and that's very, very unusual for an area that usually is in the 70s, right? So as weather permits, we've been managing to get out. We haven't really done much hiking at all, but we've managed to get to town a few days, and so we'll cover those journeys here. One of our day trips, we went to Hope, Alaska. It was founded in 1888 on the backs of a gold discovery, of course. Today, the town has about 200 people left, a far cry from the 3,000 or so that was originally founded the town, but now there's about 200 people. So Hope, as well as many of the coastal towns, were affected dramatically by the 1964 earthquake. The town actually sank about 15 feet, which kind of slid part of the town into what they call the Turnagain Arm, which is a bay of water that comes in. So at high tides now, some of the buildings and the surrounding grasses and stuff like that are actually covered in bay water. There's a really nice museum here in Hope that depicts what life would look like in 1888, 1900s, this time frame. Let's go inside one of these houses and see what we see. They've turned this bunkhouse into a museum. Kitchen area. Some kind of a sleeping quarters. Pretty small. I guess this was 2 rooms? I don't know. I see 2 rooms, down here at least. There is an upstairs, but it's blocked off, so we can't go up there. The way this museum is laid out, it really gives you a really good feel of what it would be like to live here in the late 1800s, early 1900s. All of these buildings are original to the time period. However, they've been brought to this one location from all over the area. So they've disassembled and moved them here and kind of built this little town. Okay, it's 1904 in Hope, and it's time to go to school. This is Teacher Grimes' house, as well as the schoolroom. So he's got some books over there, a little tiny chalkboard. There's a bunch of furs all over the place. There's his bed covered in furs, and And of course the big potbelly wood stove to keep them warm in the wintertime. "1904, this is what you would be looking at to go to school." I assume it was all ages, all grades, all everything. Here we are at the Dirty Skillet for lunch. We had a great turkey sandwich, chili, a salad, and how did I forget the Turnagain ice cream, which is a cinnamon flavored ice cream, homemade, as well as apple pie. They also rent cabins out here on this little tiny pond. I'd really suggest this place if you ever get to Hope. So I'm starting to have troubles understanding Alaskans' choice in beer. You know, I look at Alaskans as, you know, taming the wild and this type of thing. But yet, they all choose light beer. I don't get it. Surprisingly, we really haven't seen large animals. We see a couple of moose here, but I was expecting to see many more bears and this type of thing. Yeah, maybe when we get to Denali, we'll see them. So while in Moose Pass, we met these two wonderful couples, Peter and Fran, and Kirk and Kay. So since we've spent so much time together, we decided to meet up in Seward to enjoy some of the 4th of July festivities. So the festivities in town include a marketplace where you can buy your foods and t-shirts and jewelry and this type of thing. Lots of fun. Okay, so how long did it take you to be able to do this?
So I rode that one for about 3 years before I hopped on this one, and I got on it on the first try.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
But I've been riding unicycles for like 7 years, so
Sure.
pretty fun.
So the real reason for the gathering is to run what they call Marathon Mountain. They run from the bottom all the way to the top of this mountain that you see. It's not a long course, but it is extremely difficult. You go about a half mile through town. It's 1 mile to the top of a 3,000-foot climb. Then you turn around and you run back down the mountain, back the half a mile through town to the finish line. Now, you know, with a good telephoto lens, I was able to catch some of the action on the hillside. This hillside in places is so steep, it's really hand over hand. People are literally climbing up this mountain. But remember, it's a race. So the women were finishing. Here's the women starting off right now, in fact, taking off down the road. And you can see here them climbing up hand over hand. The women finished in just a little bit over an hour, and the men finished at about 48 minutes, somewhere around there. This is only 3 miles. You know, that's pretty slow if you think about if you're running on a road or something like that. But again, this is hand over hand, physically climbing a very steep mountain to get to the top and then coming back down. So we hung around the finish line quite a bit for some of the women finishing, and you can see that they're just covered in dirt. And that's because, especially their backsides, and you know, the trail is super dusty because there's been no rain. They're sweaty, and a lot of the slopes are so steep that they actually kind of slide down on their bottom to get down them. That's how steep it is. You don't run down this mountain, you slide down it in places. In fact, we heard on on snowier years, part of the mountain is typically covered in snow. So you'd have to run up the mountain in snow, but then on the way down, they slide down the mountain on the snow. So it's a pretty cool race. Time and time again, while we were at the finish line, we saw these very, very fit people, and they would come in absolutely completely spent and literally collapse. And the aides here would grab them as they passed the finish line so they didn't hit the pavement, run them over to a bucket and sit them down on the bucket, and then spray them down with water. And, you know, within a few minutes they got their legs back type thing. But they were, you know, emotionally and physically spent after doing this run. After 3 weeks of being in Moose Pass, it was finally time to move on down the road. We went about 40 miles down the road to a place called Tangle Pond for some more free camping, of course, which is right around the Portage area. Portage is the gateway to Whittier. And so although we didn't go to Whittier, we didn't feel like we needed to. We took the Portage Glacier Tour. This was an outstanding tour. I was so thrilled with it. This lake that you're looking at actually wasn't a lake originally. This was all glacier. And the lake was formed via the glacier melting. The boat driver, I guess you call him a captain, he was kind of funny. You know, there's this waterfall running down the side of a mountain. He edged the front of the boat right up against it, so, you know, anybody on the front of the boat was getting wet. It was quite hilarious, actually. So here's Portage Glacier off in the distance. It comes from, you know, that valley all the way down to the water. They're like frozen rivers, really. They go up various arms of the valleys, and they merge together, and they flow just like water. We learned that there are over 100,000 glaciers in Alaska, so we'll be taking pictures of glaciers for quite a while. So all the glaciers have like a river system running under them, and this is a picture of the cave where all the fresh water or glacier water comes streaming out. Take a look at this crack that's forming. Apparently it's been that way for several days. It's too bad it didn't fall when we were there. Our last stop for this trip is a place called Byron Glacier. It's in the top of that valley there. It's actually a hanging glacier because all the lower half is melted away at this point, so it's just hanging on the upper half. I often wondered why glaciers don't get bigger, you know, when there's a good snow year. Why didn't they get bigger? Apparently it takes 10 years of the snow laying there to be compressed enough to turn into glacier ice. Because really it's a squeezing process to squeeze out all the air. So snow has to be piled very thick for 10 years for it to turn into glacier ice. So, editor, what'd you think of that?
Pretty good.
You think it passes?
Sure.
All right, you want to put the ending on it?
So if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.
See you next week.